Welcome to The Real Deal. Gianluca, also known as G. We met 2015, October of 2015 in Los Angeles.
Yes.
At an amazing Unleash the Power Within Tony Robbins extravaganza weekend where we're VIP seats. We were coming from different places and we sat right next to each other.
Yeah, and then we were also able to lean on each other for the experience of the whole weekend, and whatever exercises Tony gave us, a lot of them were done between you and I, which was amazing.
It was an amazing thing, and that was the beginning of this relationship.
So thank you so much, Asher. I appreciate you. How did it all start out? I grew up in a entrepreneurial, construction-based family. And my father owned a myriad of construction businesses or construction-related businesses. The one that really he implanted and cemented his footing in was two of them, really. Masonry being what his trade is, and also shortly afterwards got into custom home building. And that's the one that really people knew him for, both the masonry, but especially the custom home building. And now you fast forward 20 to 30 years later, and I'm in business for my own, and there has been definite ups and downs. First one, if you want to have a clear example, was a office manager that I'd hired who had a previous relationship with. We actually worked for the same company, the first company I came to Toronto to work for, after parting ways with the family business, which we can discuss. It was all above board and there was no bad blood. It was just for opportunity. So this individual and I had a relationship there. She was a coordinator of mine at this company. And when I decided to go on my own a couple of years later, when things really started rocking and rolling and I needed help and I needed somebody to take care of the office and help with things in general, I naturally gravitated to her and asked if she was available, and she was, and I hired her, and it was great because we already had an established relationship. And I got to a point where I was traveling 2 to 3 times a week, like hopping on a plane for work nationally, where we did and still continue to do work for a handful of clients across Canada. And because one of the mantras that was instilled to me from a young age that I've carried into my own business, which is paying our bills on time and taking care of our service providers. For me, that was important. And sometimes that meant that I wasn't able to be around to ensure that timeline was met all the time. So I said, how else can I address that? Well, giving this individual a bit of a signing authority, I put a limit to it. And I think just off the top of my mind, gave her that in October of a certain year. By December of that same year, she was already taking advantage of it for her own personal use. And that was a mistake that I own. Another mistake that I can own, and I'm not too fond or proud of, is that I wasn't looking at the bank statements or doing the bank, or at least looking at the bank reconciliation. So I was putting a lot of trust in one individual. And back in those days, it wasn't electronic copies of checks. It was actually the checks coming back to you. So those checks were being shredded. And it was not until a year later when I did the full year end that my accountant picked it up. And by then it was over $82,000 that was taken.
Wow. So
I can say that with a smile now.
Yeah, but it's those lessons though. I mean, that's what this whole podcast is about, right? It's about the real deal in individuals and where they came from and how they got to where they are today. So those are the beginning levels, right? You talked about just the upbringing around the construction business and following your dad around, literally being with him and really absorbing as much as you could, even though it sounded like he was insulating you a little bit with not knowing all of the pressures and all of the not so happy moments, which I think any father would do. I would definitely do that for my kids and maybe show them a little bit of that it's not perfect in the world, but you don't want to scare them either. Just large scale.
The linchpin that had me start my own business was I got fired from my last employer. And it was just enough for me to say, okay, well, that's it. I don't want to work for anybody else anymore. especially for some of the things that got both myself and that previous employer, our relationship soured over things that we didn't agree on. And no disrespect to them. Actually, I still, although they are no longer in business, I still think of them as one of the best experiences I've had here in Toronto, because back in the day, they were probably one, if not one of the best design build construction firms. And no fancy story to Centrecon. I just something that I chose. And what's behind Centrecon? Centrecon is everything that I've ever experienced from childhood to now, being able to slow things down enough to see what contractors or the construction industry or even owners are doing wrong, and changing that and transforming. That's what Centrecon is. That is what we want and what we always deliver to every one of our clients, and what we want to continuously educate both our service providers, other contractors, and other clients, be it existing or new. That's a continuous quest that we have to everyone out there.
I love that about you, G, because you're not just out there looking for the next commercial building to rehab or build or work on. You're looking to improve the construction industry entirely and making that impact for not just on the commercial, but the residential. And you're always really good at bringing people together, right? And I know that's something that you're working on with CPU, which is that Construction Professionals Unite, that is still in the early stages. But I want you to expand on that a little bit, because again, you're not just looking for that next deal, but you want to make sure that the client is having the respect, the communication, the follow through, and the end product that they were desired to have. And you're now bringing a community of professionals together to communicate and to almost mastermind together, right? Work through things together, because there's been some changes in the construction industry in the last couple of years, right? So now we're 2022, but I mean, I'm sure you can expand on from 2019, 2020, 2021 to today, things that have changed, and what this group that you're providing information to and getting other people around the world to unite. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what is going on in the construction industry from your perspective, and tell us a little bit about CPU.
So first and foremost, yes, it is definitely what myself and my firm are after, are definitely not just more work. We do want more work, but we want more work in a certain fashion. It needs to be between us and the owner who sees things the same way we do. We share the same core values. We have the same ideals. We share the same vision, or we're able to share the same vision. It might not be that initially when we meet, we have the same vision, but in discussing and getting to know each other and establishing relationships, which is what I feel one of the things that the construction industry is missing, not only today, but ever. So there are relationships there because of that. I'm talking about the relationships where you build a relationship with your contractor before even starting the project, involving your contractor at the infancy stages. Because one of the things that has never changed in the approximately 150 years that construction has been existing, it's existed even longer, but it existed as a business. So the reason why I've chosen to create a mastermind by the name of Construction Professionals Unite, or CPU, is because we do want to create a community, which is a second thing that's missing in the construction industry. There is no community for people working in construction. We're always pegged against each other, almost like rabid dogs, and who's going to get the last piece of flesh on the bone. It's gotten down to that. And I could tell you crazy stories about how fiercely competitive things are. So creating community and educating others within our industry that we do have choices. We should no longer think of ourselves as people who wear dirty jeans and work gloves and work boots. We provide a service that is extremely important. Without our services, every other business out there would not exist because we house them. We create spaces for them. We create warehousing that service other business. So we do a lot. And I feel that one of the things that we need to start embracing is that we need to understand that the value that we bring to the table and not undersell each other. And that's been happening a lot. Within the same age span of 150 years, I feel that the construction industry has been one to undersell themselves.
Okay, so I got a question for you, because let's say a lot of our listeners are maybe Southwest America, right? Like in the United States, right? A lot in Arizona, obviously, and we have a lot of following in the California region and Nevada, let's say, even in Texas, throughout the country. But if someone's going to be hiring a contractor, right? Commercial, residential, doesn't matter, right? What would be the top maybe 1 to 2 things? If there's more, bring it on. But what would be the ways for them to identify or maybe look out for, like a red flag, for them to really be aware of when bringing someone on for a project, no matter if it's a $5,000 project or a $500,000 project?
So as an owner, we're talking on an owner's behalf. On the owner's behalf, in order to be a well-prepared owner, my recommendation to every owner is that they have a maximum spend. Don't go into it willy-nilly trying to figure out how much the project's going to cost. Let's stop kidding each other. You know how much money you have to spend, and if you don't, then you shouldn't be starting to begin with, because it's a recipe for disaster. So that means you've gone through your financials, you know exactly what your maximum spend limit is. Have that ready. Second, what's your vision? Like, what do you, and what are your expectations? So there are two additional things. So what is your vision for your project? What do you need it for? What's the end use? And what's the desired timeline? These are everything that can fall between vision and expectations. Also, what are your expectations for the project and from your contractor? If the owner does not have at least those 3 things in their satchel, to say, ready to meet their contractors, it triggers a lot on the contractor side, because a lot of the contractors that are out there are savvy as it relates to asking questions. They ask a lot of subjective questions. And that means that they've read the client in such a way that the client is giving them the answers that they want to hear. Follow? So they'll ask questions in such a way that it makes the client believe that they're getting what their expectations are. And most times clients' expectations are unrealistic, because let's face it, you're a client for a reason. If you weren't a client, you'd be a contractor. You wouldn't be going out for somebody's services, right? It's not
yeah, like you really need, as an owner of a building or a home and an owner of a construction company, I mean, it's really not just the owner interviewing the contractor, but the contractor's also interviewing the owner to make sure that if all the people and all the things are lining up properly by the questions that are being asked and so forth. So from an owner perspective, go ahead.
It is definitely a two-way street, or two-way interview process. And that's another one of the points that I'd like to bring up, is that if you're not getting hard questions from your contractor, be wary about that. Because if they're not trying to get information, draw out information out from you in order to better understand you, in order to get the information that's required to customize your project, not only your project, but your experience with the project. Because contrary to further belief, not every project is the same. That's another problem that my industry has, is that they predominantly treat every project the same way, almost as if it was cookie cutter, where it isn't. Every project should be different. I don't care if you're building the same style McDonald's all over, peppered across the United States. Every one of those sites is going to be completely different. So it should be treated as such. So be wary as to the questions that are being asked, and be wary also about the answers you're getting. If the answers match too much what you expect and it sounds too good to be true, the age-old saying is exactly that. You shouldn't be falling for that.
I love that. Too good to be true. It probably is.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to get a hold of you in regards to learning more about what you can help them with? And are you primarily helping only in the Toronto-based area right now? Or where do you work? How far do you expand and work in?
Work as it relates to construction, getting the physical work done is across Canada. We'll do work across Canada for the right client.
Sure.
We prefer to start, the one way I can explain this is I prefer to start to learn how to walk with my client before we go on to full on to the sprint. So I think taking on a national project with a client that we do not have a relationship already established would be Toronto or across Canada. And as it relates to the Mastermind, it's everywhere. To be honest, the majority of the current members are all US based. Wyoming, Utah, Texas, Nevada. I forget. I think I got one from Florida in there. I've always loved personal development as a youngster, but always dipping my toe in the pool, never fully jumping in. And I got to tell you, it's ironic that October 2015 at the UPW was where my personal and, unbeknownst to me, professional commitment to personal and professional development started. It was with UPW, and my experience at UPW, thanks to individuals like you, and obviously also thanks to Tony Robbins. I love the man. The man is exactly who he says he is. He lives, eats, and breathes it. I have tremendous respect for Tony Robbins, and thanks to him, I've done and the experiences that I've had, and with the other friends that I've met throughout the Tony Robbins community, I ended up doing every one of Tony's courses or programs, some of them even twice. As a matter of fact, I'm 2 away from being a senior leader with Tony Robbins.
Nice. That's awesome, G. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I even got the Live with Passion today.
Award for the right day. Yeah, baby. So, I mean, that whole thing was incredible. It was incredible because it was emotional. It really broke down barriers that all of us have as people. And we all have different things that we're always fighting and going through and trying to get better at and overcome. And we all have those things and he demonstrates it, and he provides solutions in a very real way, even though there were thousands upon thousands of people, and it united us in a way where, almost 7 years later, we're still speaking, still friends, still trying to almost like accountability partners, like, hey, how you doing? Are you still keeping to the course, right? And staying on track. And that's a beautiful thing. What else do you want to share, G?
Before I forget, just a quick rewind as to where my services, at least my firm services, I shared that much. I am also open to consulting. And that's open across Canada and the US. If there's somebody that's interested in reaching out to me on a consultant basis, I am definitely wide open to speaking to these individuals. And it's just remember that I will do so with anybody, but it's going to take an investment of getting to know each other, right? And that's always with the intent of ensuring that we're meant to work with each other, because there's no hard feelings if we're not, and B, that if we are, that we extract the best possible experience for both of us, because it's important.
Yeah, that outcome has to be a win. It has to be a win every time. And that's a big differentiator that you have versus most. So happy to have you on today. I know we've been talking about this for a while. Anything else you want to include in this segment?
Success is not only dependent on the contractor. The success, there's a large onus that is quite seldom undertaken by the owner, and they have a large responsibility. And I can say that being very clear and transparent with information is one of them. Answering any questions in a timely fashion is the other. And paying your contractor on time is the third. If you do at the very least those three, including having built a relationship at the forefront of your project, you are increasing the likelihood of success 10x.
Yeah, just doing what you're supposed to be doing. Right? I mean, it's just doing the right thing over and over. Yeah. Love it. Gee, thanks for being on, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you.
Great.
And again, thanks for always being there. And I'm glad we did this, and we'll probably do it again. But I think there were a lot of really good takeaways for people that were listening and that will listen to this in the future about what it's like to work with a contractor, and not just a contractor, but an owner of a contracting company and consultant, and what you're doing on the Construction Professionals Unite side of things that is open to really anyone in North America that can participate if they get a hold of you, and really just get involved with learning best practices and becoming better. So really appreciate you to be on today, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you. And a quick plug with regards to that mastermind that I'm heading. It's not just for contractors. It can also be trades. So it is specific to owners and founders of companies, but it could be an owner of an electrical company, an owner of a plumbing company, a framing company. It does not need just to be contractors or construction professionals.
So thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you as well. Have a great day.
You too.